Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have David Shadpour with us today. He's a founder and CEO at Social Natives, an advisor and board member at a whole bunch of other companies, angel investor. First company, I believe, was Group Buy, and then Amplify Buzz. So serial entrepreneur right there. I believe in the Beverly Hills area in LA. So David, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to.
Thank you, Charles. What would you like to know? You want to hear the inception, day one? How deep are we going?
Yes.
Yeah.
What shaped you? The 80/20 version.
Yeah. So I was born in Los Angeles, California, first generation American. Both my parents are immigrants from Iran, just right before the Islamic Revolution. Their parents shipped them out to the States. My mom came out here in high school. My dad came in right after high school. So really young, no direction, without their parents, just trying to find their way. You asked me what shaped me. I'll give you a very good example of something that shaped me. I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and my family around me, aunts and uncles, are very affluent. And I watched my father's net worth decline dramatically, going from affluence in an affluent family to pure poverty, like not having enough money for food. And I have a very strong recollection in elementary school of my mother dropping me off at a private school in Beverly Hills in 3rd grade. And just to give you some perspective, I wasn't enrolled in the school. I wasn't a student. I mean, I was wearing the uniform, but I wasn't a student at the school. I didn't have an application or financial aid or even lice check. And so the school, as you could imagine, this is, predates cell phones, so it's not like they could call my mom. So they would just have me sit in the lobby, and I don't blame them. And at the end of the day, after school was over, and we're talking like an hour after school's over, everyone's gone. I'm still sitting in the lobby, and my mother picked me up. And I recall how she would greet me, which was something that happened often. She said, "Okay, how to go to school today?" And you could imagine 3rd grade, you're like 8, 9 years old. Like, I didn't go to school. I sat in the lobby. And my mother's response was, "Oh, that's okay. You'll get in school tomorrow." And every day my mom would just drop me off. And it would take about a month. And the reason why I say it would take is because this was an annual experience for me. This wasn't just 3rd grade. It was 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. My mom would just drop me off. And after a while, the head of school had really just felt bad for me. The administration just had empathy. And so they allowed me to go to school. I bring this up because it shaped me in a very significant way. So at the time, I hated it. But in hindsight, it taught me like unbelievable grit and resilience, and really just, anything is possible. And I still believe that with all my heart. Like, anything is possible. You just have to really want it bad enough and have that grit. And so that really shaped me. I can go on, but that was just a little story.
I think empathy as well. You're probably a guy that gives shots to people, right?
I would say yes and no. I definitely give shots to people, and I very much am appreciative of people who want to take shots. What I've tried to avoid as I've gotten older is not trying to give people shots when they themselves are not in the mindset of taking the shot. So yes, if I meet someone who has that grit and they're just determined, whether it's working with me or within my network or anything I could do to help that person, brings me tremendous joy. But if it's Charles, let's say, and I'm like, "Charles, I have this connection for you and I can really help your business," and you're just not in that vibration, it's proven to be not the best use of energy.
Yeah, I've lived that as well with various employees, and yeah, it never really works. You can, or I mean, it works if you have the time, right? Like if you have like 3 years or 10 hours per week to invest in them. But yeah, usually us busy founders and CEOs don't have that time. So you're correct on that. What was your first business, and was it the home run or was it the massive failure?
So I'd say my first business was everything, right? Even in day school, I was trading candy or whatever it is I was doing to get by. And in high school, I was cutting hair, just to have like $10 to give my friend for gas because I needed a ride. I didn't have a car and things of that nature. So really always grinding. And then in college, I did everything. I was a nightclub promoter. I was tutoring. It actually worked out so great. I was a tutor for some pretty difficult math and science classes. And a lot of those kids who could afford to pay me for tutoring were affluent, and my network was very affluent. So they were also the people that could afford bottle service. So I got into nightclub promoting as another stream of revenue for myself. But my first business, actually my first job, I'll tell you a little story of the childhood grit story and how that translated in my adult life. I was on course to go to medical school, and I had a friend, childhood friend, who was a year older than me, and he had taken a call center job in New York. Commission only type of boiler room, and he was making six figures in his first job. I don't remember the numbers, but let's just say 200K, which at the time for me was like making 20 million. And I was like, dude, how are you making this kind of money? This is unbelievable. And I was going to continue my school and education path of accumulating more and more debt. And at the time I was dealing with a lot, like my cell phone would get canceled because I didn't make a payment, or I was borrowing money from buddies here and there to cover my rent. It was just a challenging way to live, maxed out all my credit cards. And he's like, yo, you got to come to this boiler room. So I went for 4 rounds of interviews. I am such good friends with the founder of this company to this day, the only job I ever really worked. But I went through 4 rounds of interviews, and on a Friday, I received a phone call that I did not get the job. And what they didn't fully understand was that I needed this job. Like, I didn't have the means to pay for my rent now that I had graduated from undergrad and wasn't getting the grants anymore, So it was like, I needed this gig. And my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife today, was kind of a witness to this story. I woke up on Monday morning and I put on a really nice suit, and I went down to the office and I just sat in one of the cubicles. And I didn't have a password even. I just pretended like I worked there. And my friend who worked there was freaking out that he was going to get in trouble. And then some of the people that I interviewed with walked by and they're like, oh, hey, Dave. And I guess they just assumed that I had gotten the gig. I lasted about 20 minutes until I was called into the CEO's office. And yeah, he just looked me in the eye and he's like, what are you doing? Like, what do you think you're doing? And in a fairly classic, like early 20s, lots of chutzpah, I looked right back at him and said, what are you doing? I'm making money. And I got the job. He hired me. He hired me on the spot. It was a really special memory. And like I said, we're still very good friends to this day. But I worked there for a few years, and I had amassed a little bit of capital, and that's how I started. That's how I became an entrepreneur. So once I paid off my debt and saved a little bit of money, I jumped into entrepreneurship.
And that's thanks to your mom for dropping you at school without like any pre-arrangements and just like, oh, you'll just figure it out. I have a similar story. It's way less intense, right? So my parents they're not first gen immigrants in Canada. They've been there for as long as Canada's been founded, I think. But yeah, they hired me at a call center as well. I would sell LED lights to engineers and architects. I got hired, right, but it was still like a very meager pay. And I would do 200 phone calls a day to perfectly English speaking Canadian. I'm French Canadian, so English is not my first language. And I would get about 20 fuck offs every day, right? And I think that experience of just like, 200 phone calls every day for a couple of months really shaped me. It really killed my ego because I started a couple of businesses before that and they never launched because I could never sell shit, right? Like I had the product, I had the perfect everything, the perfect logo, but I couldn't sell shit. And after that, I could actually launch businesses. I could make them profitable. So I think that also taught you that skill to actually sell and I guess to kill your ego. Did you make any money for that one, or did you soon leave it?
Are you referencing the first business that I started?
The phone calls, because it's pure
Oh yeah.
commission. You told me. So did
Oh
you
yeah.
did you make
I
any
made
sales?
I made real money. I had about $80,000 of credit card and student loan debt that I paid off in my first year. I saved about $40,000 before I started my first business. So yeah, it was a good business. I also learned a lot about tech. I was headhunting executives in the marketing technology, advertising technology ecosystem. So in many ways, it's kind of like how I got my degree in understanding the tech ecosystem. And some of those folks that I called on later in life either became employees of mine or investors in my business. So I'd say a lot of times it really isn't the job, it's the person, you know, and if you're driven and you're motivated, you will figure it out. I had a very big why. I had five younger siblings who didn't have means, and you know, my brother needed braces, or my brother needed, you know, SAT tutoring, and for me, that was a very big why. Now, at the time, I was in my early 20s. I was still an animal, partying and being stupid and spending money, but I had some responsibilities. So when it came to work, I really like, you know, was driven. Um, so yeah, that's a bit of kind of the starting story.
And then you went into agencies. So I think agencies are sort of low-hanging fruits, right? Like it's quick money, it's
Yeah.
consulting, it's also like an experimental lab. I run agencies even up to this day, and they fuel my SaaS and all the other fancy stuff that I've built. So what was your first agency? And yeah, did it skyrocketed, or was it like mostly stable growth?
My first business was a Groupon like competitor, and I moved abroad to try to have first market advantage. And there's many lessons in that business. I mean, it was a profitable business, and I made a good living, but I was also very naive. So I had challenges like a co-founder who was stealing money from the company, and I wasn't like aware. Yeah, so it was like a lot of like early lessons at a very young age. Um, Actually, I mean, as terrible as that experience was for me, it really was a blessing in terms of teaching me early in my journey. Um, and I ended up building that to like a good six-figure EBITDA business, but I wasn't satiated. I didn't love working with SMBs, and so I decided to come back to the States and swing a little bit bigger. And instead of working with small businesses, really swing for the Fortune 500. And just to give you some perspective and anyone who's listening, I really do believe in manifesting. And even on that flight, when I was flying into the States, I mentioned to my wife that I was going to work with Fortune 500 brands, that I was going to work with Walgreens, that I was going to work with Coca-Cola. And you have to understand,
Nicki Minaj.
I have an undergraduate degree in biology, you know, like I don't know anything about this stuff, but I was so determined. And I really believed from my experience of my first company that if you're going to do all this hard work, you need to get a larger deal size, right? So instead of having a deal size that was $100, why don't I get a deal size that's $1 million? And, you know, that might be the path. And that was my thesis at the time. And so I came back and yeah, I got into the social agency business. I think more a function of being born in the 80s and understanding social, you know, and being someone that got Facebook in my college years. I was able to get in front of enterprise brands again, all through like sheer relentless brute force, and create an opportunity for myself that led to a very significant outcome for me, and really changed the course of my life in the sense that I found financial security. I started building a real estate portfolio. It just really changed my life. I bought my first house, that kind of thing. I will mention, because I know that there are other entrepreneurs listening. Along the way, you know, you don't know that what you're doing is going to work. There are a million things that I worked on that did not work, like electric scooters or something, but like 10 years before it should have been. light up dog collars. Like, I mean, there was
Cool,
like
man.
things that I was like, at one point I wanted to do like a wig subscription business. Like, you're testing the universe, right? You are an entrepreneur, you are a visionary, you have ideas, right? You think it would be really interesting, and you go out and you kind of test the world, and sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it was execution, sometimes it was timing, sometimes it was funding. There's a million reasons why things don't work. But my message to myself and to everyone else is, it's all about that swinging. It is a personality. And Charles, you're a really good example of it. You're showcasing a lot of your swings on your LinkedIn profile. Whether they worked or didn't work is kind of irrelevant. It's the nature of being someone that swings. And I had a coaching call with another entrepreneur before this meeting, and it was the exact same topic. It was like, dude, you're not swinging. So I don't even need to look at the financials. If you don't swing, you automatically lose. And a
Yeah.
lot of people, they fear missing. But my life experience has been, just keep swinging. Of course you're going to miss. I mean, missing is like, that's part of the swinging guy, right? The swinging guy just swings. He misses, but he's not even thinking about it. It's like, okay, miss. Okay, swing again. Okay, miss. Okay, swing again. Okay, hit. Okay, swing again. Like, you're in the swinging lifestyle. And it really is a personality. And so whether it was my first business or my second, and now my third, Social Native, each one was really just me trying to swing a little bit higher, a little bit further, first base, second base, third base. And Social Native has really been a wild success, significantly greater than even my original perception of what was possible. But we've created a secondary source of income for 1.8 million people across the globe. We work with the biggest brands in the world. We've really built something interesting. And I look back on that journey and try to ask myself, okay, how did this come about? And I really do believe it all boils down to this perception in your mind, that you can and will be successful, and then swinging as many times as necessary, whether it's 1 year or 10 or 20, to achieve whatever it is that your heart desires. And what your heart desires might evolve over time, and that's okay. But you just are not the guy who doesn't swing. That's not who you are. You're allowed to have a bad day. You're allowed to feel defeated. You're allowed to like hate your job, but you still get up the next day and you swing again. And in many ways, that comes back to the lesson from my mother, which was, oh, you didn't get in today? Okay, you'll get in tomorrow. And at the time, I didn't understand it, but it really was like, oh, this is how you are going to go to school. Like, this is your journey. And why is business any different? It's not. One kid grows up and he's born into money, right? Like, daddy gave him 50 million, and another guy takes 50 million swings to make his first million. Whatever it is, like, this is the journey of the entrepreneur.
Yeah, and especially in the US, that's the American dream. I'm not sure how alive that dream is. I mean, it's throughout the world, I think it is alive, or most of the world nowadays, if you're a digital nomad. But yeah, very much true. I wish more people would understand that swinging mentality, right? Like, I work with a bunch of clients in cold email, and sometimes they're just afraid to launch a goddamn campaign. I'm like, let's test it. The market is going to tell us if it's successful or not. I think the school teaches us that, yeah, you don't swing, because if you swing in a test and you swing in the wrong way, you get like that end score, and that's the end of you. So yeah, school doesn't teach you these kinds of skills. And I think, yeah, which is very interesting, your background, like very hardworking. Did you stack, or at what point did you stack like working smart under the working long and hard? Like, where did you learn how to work smart, or was that always into you, right? Because you said you were also like an SAT teacher, so I'm pretty sure you were already a smart guy. But yeah, like, what do you think about that?
I don't know if I have a good answer, but I will tell you my initial reaction is, I think working hard was just part of the DNA in the 20s and 30s. And today, I've entered my 40s, and towards the end of my 30s, and also just based on overall net worth, I very much shifted out of working hard and shifted more into working smart. And what I mean by that is not that I wasn't working smart before, but the energy of working hard in your youth, which I encourage everyone in their 20s and 30s, especially in their 30s, to bust their ass, is, that's an energy. You have the hours available and you have the will available. And there is a huge shift in life should you be able to amass some wealth in your 30s. But in your 40s, statistically, people in their 40s, they create the largest volume of net worth in their careers. And I believe that that's a function of all the hard work in your 30s allows in your 40s to work smart. Okay, so just like a simple example, even if you have $1 to invest, well, now you're in your 40s, you have a little bit of money, okay, what am I going to do with this money? Now you could play cowboy, you could play the markets, whatever it is, but that's where the smarts really come in. And I'm going to give you guys a really good anecdote that I use personally, which is, first and foremost, you must invest your money in yourself. You must. It's the best investment. You can create infinite net worth for yourself if you believe in yourself. But once you've created some wealth, really at the end of the day, should you be an entrepreneur, your business is the riskiest. So you want to try to put some of that money. The way that I started off after I paid off my debt was, okay, I just need to have 1 year's worth of capital as my under my pillow, safety net, so that I could be an entrepreneur, so I could take risk, so I could not live paycheck to paycheck, right? That was the investment in myself. But once you create that, then you can start buying real estate and really just thinking like prior generations, which is, if you buy real estate early in your life, when you're older, you won't have to worry about money. And I know a lot of people are big fans of getting rich quick and big fans of Bitcoin and, the whole world that we're from, and I'm not knocking it. But my biggest fear was, I can bust my ass in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, but in my 60s and 70s, I may not be that guy. So what am I doing to make sure that I'm safe? And then finding that safety is what allowed me to shift from working hard to working smart, which means now that I know I'm okay, now let me really do what I love. Let me find the people that I love doing it with. Let me be very smart about how I use my time, because money we can figure out how to make. But making it with people that you love is the greatest gift of making money. And so that's been some of the smart shifting, or at least how I identify with the word smart.
Yeah, I love that. I love so many parts of this. I think it's a lot of psychological security as well. If you had trauma with money, right? Just like operating in a safe zone or allows you to reach flow state easier and to be more present in your business and not constantly worrying. Because even if you don't think about it, I think there's a subconscious aspect of it in which you're constantly sort of in a fight or flight. There's a bit more cortisol in your blood if you're not financially safe. So yeah, definitely vibe with that. When you say invested yourself, though, you also mean education, of course, but also health. As a biohacker, I invest shit tons of money into health nowadays, and just to firing on all my cylinders.
Yeah, so I would say health, most definitely. Statistically, the most successful entrepreneurs also lift weights. I mean, your health is indisputable. Also, by the way, it's not just health. You want to look and feel good. You don't want to put on a shirt before your big meeting and feel out of shape. That's not the $1 million guy, right? You want to put on your suit and feel like $1 million. You need that physical health to feel like $1 million to go, fake it till you make it, or whatever your strategy is. So yes, health, but also investment in self. For example, mentorship. You might not be where you want to be, but there are people who are there. You need to know those people. I surrounded myself with a network of mentors from day one. My father wasn't my financial mentor. I mean, if anything, he was a guide of what not to do. And so I proactively set out to find and make friends, truly friends, of people that were successful. And successful people are not opposed to mentoring those that are not successful, right? If anything, when you make a good match, it's someone that sees, themselves in you, and they too are invested in your success. And, it's probably the greatest investment you can make in your success is identifying mentors. Build a list of 10 people. Don't just randomly make a list like, oh, Elon Musk. It's like, be thoughtful. Okay, who am I, right? Who am I in my journey and what resonates with me? What resonates with me? And then find people who are like-minded. I found people that were like-minded, similar fabric, similar DNA, similar upbringing, maybe similar culture, like find what speaks to you and then relentlessly pursue them. I mean, some of the folks that are mentors of mine, countless emails ignored, countless like mutual connection intros ignored. But for me, it was like, no, this guy, Charles, he's going to be my mentor, right? He's on my list. So whatever I got to do to get in touch with him, I will. And in one specific mentor example, I ended up finding out that a mutual connection was an attorney. And I went to that attorney. I said, hey, I'm starting a company. I need an attorney. And we started schmoozing, and he was selling me on his services. I was like, great. Do you know any angel investors who kind of meet this profile? This is the type of people I'm trying to meet. And he's like, oh, I know there's one guy. Well, that guy was the guy on my list. And I knew that it was the guy on my list. I was in a major chessboard game in my brain of like, how do I get to this guy? And 10 years later, he's one of my good friends. Right. So this is like the manifesting energy that makes everything and anything possible.
Right, I love that. Yeah, and I would, well, one is a question, but the first is a statement. Like I've had also like people that I thought would be great mentors, but I quickly discarded them once I really knew them. Like that's one preface that I want to add here. I would also add the fact that podcast is the best way to meet anyone out there. That's the second. And the third one is a question. Do you pay for these mentors at first, or it's just like a pure labor of time, love, and both sides winning from other non-monetary aspects?
Mm. I would say no, I don't pay for them. I don't see that as being the path to true mentorship. I will say as the relationship evolves and they drive value, there can be payment generally in like equity and they're helping you, right? So I wouldn't say that there's equity in exchange for mentorship, but there can be equity in exchange for value. And let me clarify, because your point about also graduating from some mentors, we're aligned. You might set a business mentor because of some accomplishments that they've made in business, and then as you get to know them, they really shouldn't be your mentor, and that's a personal life choice. And I've made that choice more than one time. But should you choose to really appoint them as a mentor of yours, which means both in business and outside of business, and some people you might say, hey, this person's a really good mentor for me in business, and this person's a really good mentor for me on how to be a good dad. That you obviously you could have like various rainbows of mentors and how they mentor you. But once you really find that person, I consider them to be family. It's like, hey, I'm having a really hard day. Let me call my mentor, not because you need business advice, because you're having a really, really hard day and you actually value your mentor. And guess what happens when you call your mentor? I'm going to give you an example of something that I dealt with recently. I called her up and I was like, this is what I'm dealing with. And she was like, oh, and this person has a business that's worth over $1 billion. It's like, oh, I'm dealing with that also, obviously to a greater degree, but same thing. And I was like, no, there's no way your company's worth $1 billion. There's no way. Oh yeah, I have exactly this problem. And you know how much that helped me with my issue? It just helped me understand that my issue was part of entrepreneurship, and not exclusive to me, David, as some shortcoming. That's where mentorship can change your perspective and so on and so forth.
100%. Yeah. Like I think as humans, we're just looking for someone to listen to us and someone that's qualified to listen to us, right? That lived through these same things. And that's a very human thing. I do have a psychotherapy GPT, and they wouldn't relate to what I live in this life. So I will also talk to real humans who solve these problems. And yeah, we're social creatures in the end. We have feelings and we need to deal with these, right? So David, I know we're on time already. Where can people find out more about you?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd say that's the best place to reach me. David Shadpour, S like Sam, H like Howard, A like Apple, D like David, P like Peter, OUR. And what I might encourage of any listener, whether they choose to reach out to me or not, is really, I believe that the secret to your success and the secret to my success is truly in believing in yourself. And if you have any sort of blocker, if you have any sort of limiting belief that is preventing you from really being your greatest champion, that means when you swing and you miss, are you telling yourself you are the man, you're the best, or are you knocking yourself down? And as soon as you figure out how to perfect that talk, when you start learning how to use the inner critic to help fuel you, life becomes limitless.
100% agree. So that was David and Charles for another CEO